Gotta love this time of year. Only one can be champion. Let's go playoff racing!
I said, hey, hey, oh, oh, hey, hey, there's no surrender. Let 'em hear my battle cry.
This is the original eSport racing game. This is iRacing.
As both the points gap and the final round get closer and closer, last week's race might be the one Acosta winds up looking back at and wondering what could have been. A handful of precious points were given away despite Abner continuing his top 5 finishing streak. And while Diaz has fallen out of the fight, Modov has closed to within 7 points. 3 events are all that stand between us and knowing who claims the crown as we get ready to watch round 8 of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing eSports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, Sean Crackers Ambrose, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, today we come back to a track many of these drivers should be incredibly familiar with Road America. I'm curious who that'll help, though, and who will hurt.
Yeah, exactly, Joe. Road America is definitely one of the more commonly run racing facilities in North America with a long and rich history in all forms of racing, including sports cars, as IMSA and other series alike go here. Another thing that's pretty lengthy here is the track itself, spanning just over 4 miles of Wisconsin turf. Don't let that fool you, though, as the 2 long straightaways take up much of that. Those 2 long straightaways and the only 14 turns give this place the nickname America's National Park of Speed. That great deal of speed here makes hitting your corners and all of your marks all the more important, and it makes mistakes even more costly in terms of track position. There's the iconic uphill front stretch, the moraine sweep, the hurry downs, the carousel, the kink, Canada corner, and more. Throw them all together and you have one heck of a racetrack. To take a better look at that said racetrack, allow me now to send you down to Elkhart Lake, Wisconsin, to the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Amjad Yaman in the GSRC4 GT, so let's do a lap around Road America. The front stretch is by far the longest and fastest straight on the circuit, so turn 1 is easily going to be a good passing zone. Expect a few draft battles to erupt here, and of course to be finished in this first corner. But this is a pretty rapid turn. It's only down 2 gears and then you're back on the power trying to avoid understeering into the dirt. You've got a short blast down to 3, which is definitely one of the more important corners you'll navigate. Don't worry about your entry here so much as your exit. There's a lot of time to be lost if you get back to the gas late. That's because you're now on the moraine sweep. It's not exactly straight, so keep that in mind when you're battling with someone so that you don't drift into one another. But the real reason you see a lot of passes here is the heavy braking into turn 5. However, remember that this is a pretty decent drop downhill and it'll be embarrassingly easy to outbrake yourself. Then you climb back into turn 6. The difficulty here is that the crest makes the window for braking very narrow. Wait too long, the car will just slide its way into the gravel. After that comes turn 7. As fast as this corner is, you'll need a lift to make it through. Now you're into the hurry downs. Surprisingly, despite the short run, you'll see passes into here from time to time. It's pretty sharp, so there's lots of braking, and that creates opportunities. This brings us into the famous carousel. Try to be patient as you swing the car through here. A later apex will do you much better than getting greedy on the power and having to make a sudden lift. Then, once you finally exit the corner, you'll see the notorious kink. As much downforce as this GTE car has, you still can't take this flat out. Precision is critical because as you fly through the kettle bottoms, a lack of speed will make you susceptible to an attack into Canada corner. Try to straighten out this braking zone and then get the car turned in. You don't have much time after that before you're taken into turn 13. This blind crest is tricky in just about any car and is another thread-the-needle situation at the Ford. Finally, there's the last corner. This is another one I'd advise to not ruin your exit on. Now that we're coming back to the front stretch, carrying your momentum is of the utmost importance. You don't want to find yourself a sitting duck on your way to turn 1. Climb up the hill, hold it to the left, and hopefully you've now finished a lap around Road America.
It is a lengthy lap around here, as you can tell, but as always, today's race is brought to you by SimMSA. Simulation Motorsports Affinity provides many consulting services, from completely customizing simulators to managing teams, individual drivers, and complete events. They're working hard to bring organizations, companies, manufacturers, teams, and drivers together at one place to support and promote sim racing internationally. They're also bridging virtual and real motorsports by providing a network between these two, involving sim racers, real drivers, teams, managers, engineers, and of course, motorsport fans alike. You can find out more about how you can get involved at SIMMSA.net. Today's broadcast is also proudly sponsored by ButtKicker. ButtKicker products create an incredible immersion and realism to every game. Feel every nuance and truly put yourself in the driver's seat. The winner of Division 1 here in the PRL GTE Sports Car Series will get a ButtKicker Gamer 2 or a simulation kit. Also, both drivers of the winning team in the Team's Championship will get a free t-shirt. Check them out at thebuttkicker.com. Finally, today's race is brought to you by SpeedWerx Racing Team. One of the many teams competing here in the Precision Racing League, they've generously contributed to ensure you, the fans, get to enjoy coverage of every single round this season. We're watching qualifying, but before we get to that, because that's going to be a little bit important today based on what we saw in warm-up, let's talk about the championship. Nick, what are the drivers and teams sitting like?
Well, it is getting really tight up front in that drivers' championship. Carl Modoff jumped Michael Diaz in the last round after the results of that race, and he has not only jumped him for second there on the podium, he's closed that gap to Abner Acosta even more. He's only 7 points behind with 3 races left. Diaz 31 points behind, maybe not in the championship hunt anymore, with Christian Eisler and Moises Carballo is still going at it there for 4th and 5th. They're 40 and 50 points behind. Still a lot at stake down the line there. In the teams championships, things are not very tight up front, at least for first place. That is, Obsidian Racing is looking pretty good right now. They've got a 90-point gap over everyone else. Team Bushfink Copper being that second place team, but they only have a 3-point gap over the Kokomoto race team there in third. That, of course, being led by Carl Modoff. The Racing Sim Tools Podium Hunters there are podium hunting right now. They're 10 points back. And the Sassy Apps Autosports Blue team is another handful back. They are there in fifth.
And if you've never watched the PRL GTE Sports Car Series before, why don't we run you down some of what this race will entail? As you can see, we are in round 8, as I mentioned. They do get one drop week in those points, and that could become important, especially considering that Modoff has been less consistent than Acosta, who is chasing them. Now, the 4 cars that they can choose from, there you see on your screen, between the Porsche, Ferrari, Ford, and BMW. They have a 60-minute race on tap today that they upped it this season. It was 40 minutes in previous seasons, but they still only have one scheduled pit stop for fuel. Now, if you're wondering why GTE cars need a pit stop in a 1-hour race, they've limited the fuel cells compared to what the real cars have here in the simulator in this series. They do have open setups, though, so they can tweak the car to their needs, which also could come into play here at a unique track such as Road America. And they have an incident cap at 24. We have had drivers run afoul of that before in other races. We'll see if it comes into play tonight. They certainly don't have any spare car waiting for them in the pits if they do get damage for any sort of contact to get those incident points. As always, you're watching this on the iRacing eSports Network. Make sure and subscribe when you have the opportunity. All you got to do is go to the IESN YouTube page. If you haven't subscribed, you'll notice that there's a big red button that says subscribe. Click that, and you'll get all of the PRL GTE Sports Car Series in your YouTube feed. Watching in qualifying, that was Carl Modoff we saw just come across the line. He upped his fastest time to now half a second ahead of Fernando Borda. The one that we want to watch is currently in fourth, Abner Acosta. And the reason I bring that up, Nick, is I was looking up how last season went with this race, and it raised my eyebrow a little bit, because even though Modoff is currently on provisional pole and he led the warm-up, Acosta beat him here last time on pace. So
yeah, definitely going to be. I guarantee you neither of those drivers have forgotten about that, and especially Modoff sitting on the pole right now. He's got to be scrolling down through the results of qualifying, or the live results and timing and scoring of qualifying, and he's got to be a little bit nervous as to whether or not we might see a repeat of that. Acosta right now, it looks like he's right behind Michael Diaz, his teammate, maybe getting a little slipstream off of him. Diaz sits a little bit further down in 17th in the point, or in 17th right now on the grid. But just as I say that, it looks like Nick Harwood has gone up to second on the board.
well, that is interesting. I don't think we typically see Nick this high up. He's going to be on the front row at this rate, and he gets within 0.3 of Modoff, but still, Carl looking very fast on one-lap pace. I am noticing that Diaz seems to be leading Acosta around, and I suspect that has to do with the penalty that he accrued from last round. He has been asked to start from the pit lane due to an incident at Montreal. So I suspect he's trying to give a tow to Abner, which, whoa, puts him on the pole by a 10th and 3/4, 0.176 ahead of Carl Modoff. So now Carl has to respond in the remaining 3.5 minutes.
And that also jumped Michael Diaz up to third. He, although he, like you just said, he's going to be from the pits. That was also a fast time for him as well.
Yep, but he will leave an empty spot on the grid as we go back to Carl to see what he can do. He's coming up to Bill Mitchell Bend and through into the last turn. This Porsche, this 948, finished second last round, but it was to Caraballo, who is not in the championship hunt. He needs to beat the man in front of him right now in the timing sheets and qualifying. So let's see if he can do it. And he doesn't have a tow from his teammate. He's got to do it on his lonesome. Looks like that was a warm-up lap. So now he gets going on a timed lap. And I think, yeah, he should have enough for this one and one more if he wants 2 goes at it. This is Pisano, who finds himself in 8th. Did not improve last time by, Nick.
Yeah, everyone trying to scramble here. Just about 2.5 minutes left in qualifying, and these laps are at about 2 minutes.
There's Leif Peterson as well, who sits just ahead of Pisano, but he is in the pits and he doesn't have enough time to get back around and out. So he's done with his qualifying. Let's check in on Fernando Borda, who is doing pretty decently in the warm-up as well. As he climbs the hill towards the start-finish line, he sits in 7th, crosses, and goes faster by 0.3. That is enough for the second row. 3rd place for the number 7 car.
No Borda. Yeah, definitely not bad for him. He's looking for a good result here, as we saw Munoz.
And Acosta has just taken a tow, so that is it for Abner Acosta on the qualifying. He cannot respond if Carl manages to go faster. He didn't improve on his last lap, so it is the same 0.176 distance between them. This is onboard mode off. As we said, he should be able to get this one in and one more. Currently, they have Borda, Karen, and Diaz near them. It looks like Nick Harwood as well on the outside of row 3. 3 of the most likely to be able to challenge them for that pole position. But right now, this is the most likely the Club West driver who has won 2 championships and is vying for a 3rd.
Modov coming across up the hill now to the finish line. That
Didn't
lap
count.
not counting yet.
Must have had an off somewhere. Let's check on Valenzuela, who's in 22nd. He's got a lot of room to improve, and he does, up to a 2:01.5. That takes him into 18th. Last few cars that are able to make it across the line to start one more lap. Hefner not looking very good. He just crossed the line and he'll get one last try. He's sitting in 13th, but we saw this last week at Montreal as well. It didn't seem to qualify well. Not sure what's going on with Zach in the timing sheets here. We see the Ohio driver coming out of turn 3 onto the Moraine sweep. You see that Borda is going to be coming across to finish his qualifying, but he does not go quicker as the checkered flag comes out. Espinoza on the podium last time does not get a lap on his last attempt, so he is going to be starting well down in 12th himself, which is a bit surprising. Also have Corey Clark, the teammate to Carl Modov. He'll want to try and get up there to help in that team's championship. He's all the way down in 14th. Let's see what Corey can do from this spot. Oh, and he doesn't go faster as well. That means next car across the line is going to be his teammate. The very Technicolor Porsche, who is still in 2nd place and looking to try and go just that little bit faster. He comes to the final corner. What can Carl Modov do to respond? He missed out on the win last time, even though I believe he started from pole, if I'm not mistaken, last year at Road America. He crosses the line, and it is not faster.
That's about a 2 minutes, 0.5. He's about 0.4 off of what he had, as we now see Christian Eisler set himself up here on the straightaway. Sitting in 8th right now. This lap
Just the
better,
tiniest bit
but
faster.
not enough to jump him up a spot.
Hefner, the next one across. He does go faster, but it's only up to 9th for Zach. Harwood doesn't improve. Matthew Tina does improve and jumps himself up to 17th. Believe Espinoza should be able to get across. I don't think he came across before the time was out. He's going to take it anyways. He's in 13th. As we said, he really needs to get a better lap in here. He wants another podium. Oh, looks like he did cross already because that lap was not counted. With that, he does a little trick driving. The last of our drivers have finished in quali, so let's go through your starting order for round 8 here in Wisconsin. Abner Acosta has managed to put it on pole. Again, our winner from last season at this track. looking to try and pull away from Carl Modhoff, who has been charging lately in the points. He'll start right next to him, will Carl. The next row has Fernando Borda on the inside in third place. Then you have Andrew Karen starting in fourth. Michael Diaz is qualified in fifth, but will be made to start from the pit lane. Nick Harwood will start in sixth position, followed by Pete Mobrotten in seventh. The eighth spot has Christian Eisler there with Zachary Hefner in ninth place. Then the top 10 is rounded out by Leif Peterson.
Justin Rames is going to be starting right outside the top 10 in P11, just alongside Anthony Pisano in the 777 car. Andres Espinoza, Corey Clark, and Jeffrey Arroyan will round out your top 15, with 16th and 17th going to Michael Stogbauer and Matthew Tina. He's going to be starting alongside Josh Daniels there in row 9, with row 10 being comprised of Cristobal Valenzuela and Pablo Valenzuela Uribe.
Then you've got Kenny Rodriguez starting 21st, with Rodrigo Munoz in 22nd. Joey Trungale, who unfortunately had to come in for an extra stop last week, will be starting 23rd. He's the last driver to put a time in. Giuliano Romagnolo is 24th, and I do not see him in the server right now, so I'm not sure that we're going to see Romagnolo take to the grid here today as we wait for them to head off on the pace lap around Road America behind the Porsche pace car. This is going to be a fascinating race with the championship rivals on the front row right next to one another. And what a place, Nick, for them to have this sort of have these sequence of events start to play out, because if it was another track where it was difficult to pass, I'd say it's all about getting into that first corner. But we're at Road America, where I'm expecting it'll be a lot more swapping back and forth.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's not a track where it's too easy to pass at. It's not like a completely draft track, because a lot of this track is very technical, and you do have to be a fantastic racing driver to win a race here, especially in this series. So yeah, this is a perfect combination of turns and straightaways and hills and valleys and dips to really unleash these two drivers and see which one of them just has raw talent over another.
As you see the rest of them waiting to grid up, and it looks like it's only Diaz and Romagnolo. So everybody is gridded up. We're just waiting for the time to tick down, which it does as the pace car now pulls away, but we're waiting on Acosta to go, and he waits a long time. Not sure why Acosta let the pace car get so far away. Now he's starting to take off after it, so unusual events there up at the front of the field. The drivers now have 4 miles to circulate around and wait to develop their plan on how to tackle this race. Speaking of plans, though, let's talk about pit strategy. Nick, we've seen in the last few races, we keep thinking that drivers are going to maybe try and leapfrog with the pits and maybe pit early with an alternate strategy, but it doesn't seem to really pan out. Everybody seems to really be going late. But here, this is such a long track. Is it a risk to go a little too late and push it too far because of running out of fuel and not being able to actually make it to the pits?
You know, I can't say as though any of these drivers are going to try it, but if I was on top of the box for anyone in the points sitting maybe 3rd to 10th, where you're that either 30 to 80 points back from the championship, you're still mathematically in it just by a long shot. You might as well try something a little bit different. You know, try to short pit and go for that wild card victory here at Road America to try to get yourself back in. It's getting to that point in the season where you're not really going to be fighting for a championship unless you pull off a miraculous win. So we might just see a couple of those drivers further back inside the top 10 or in the teens pull off a varying strategy from the leaders.
We'll keep an eye out for that. Speaking of wild cards, though, last two tracks also featured a high attrition rate between the likes of Lime Rock Park and Montreal. This one usually isn't associated with that, but man, there's some really dangerous corners around here.
Absolutely, especially if you're going to be running side by side. The track is not as wide as you'd like to think. I mean, just look at them come down through there. Even on a pace lap, it's a little nerve-wracking seeing them side by side. Now imagine that at about 4 times that speed. It's definitely going to be very interesting here through the carousel, especially so many of these 14 turns. They're so different. It's hard to set the car up for a perfect a lap around here. And like I said, late in the season, you're definitely going to see drivers get after it.
Coming out of that carousel towards the kink. More terrifying turns in all of North American racing. I would almost wager to say in all of racing around the world. It is a proper old school corner that dares drivers to try and take it faster and faster. We'll see if it bites anybody today. That grass being right at the exit, just off the side of the track. You can see there to the left side. Getting the sun coming in and out a little bit, and that has swung the temperature around between about 5 degrees. I'm noticing it's currently at 97 degrees on the track, but it's been as high as 102 at one point while we were watching the qualifying. So it's a little toasty out there, but I'm not sure if that's going to be significant enough to really catch the drivers out, Nick.
And there's a lot of variables here at this track too. It's a 4-mile circuit. I mean, it could be 100-degree track temperature on the straightaway and 60 degrees in another corner. But as they come around the last couple of turns here, they're going to have to put all those variables aside for the moment and just get after it racing.
Time to feel what's underneath the car and then simply react to it. How are they going to react to the pace car coming off? Abner Acosta has control of the field. He's waiting to try and catch out Karl Modoff, and now he finally goes just as Modoff gets beside him and checks up. That gives him a great jump as the green flag waves here at Road America. It is single file for the first two. Now single file for the next two as Fernando Borda slots into third. Andrew Caron behind him. The battle for fifth with Pete Mobrotten to the inside of Nick Harwood. Looks like it's going to swing in favor of Harwood around the outside. Everybody behind gets through turn one safely.
All of the drivers staying on track for now. Acosta holding off Modoff at the front, and then you have Borda under a lot of pressure from Caron. A little bit of a gap back to Harwood and Pete Mobrotten. After Diaz started from the pits, he started up in his sixth position, and he's trying to get a slipstream down the Moraine sweep here.
23 drivers taking the green flag. How many are going to see the checkers today? Down into turn 5. Most of the action in the mid-pack. Andre Espinoza trying to climb forward after his poor qualifying. The SRT driver being followed by Justin Rain, who gets into 10th. That demotes Leif Peterson down to 11th place. Still, they're sorting themselves out behind them, though. Pisano with Corey Clark, Jeffrey Arroyan, Michael Stogbauer. It is a bee's nest as they come down the hurry downs.
Yeah, a lot of side-by-side here in the most narrow part of the circuit, too. They all head towards the carousel here. Long sweeping turn. Feels like it's never going to end. Michael Stogbauer is that BMW that's off in the gravel trap.
Get a little bit of contact, and that's the second race in a row we had first lap contact. I think that was Matthew Tina that got into him side to side. This one a little bit more fair, though, I'd say, than last round when Stogbauer got punted in Lapingle and turned around. That moves Stogbauer back to 22nd as we watch the leaders now come around Bill Mitchell Bend. And after the first lap, it is Abner Acosta, our pole sitter, leading the way up the hill. Both he and Modoff really stretching the edge of the track. Look at all the dust they kicked off.
Modoff knows he's been outraced here before by Acosta on pure pace. This is the chance for him. He cannot let Acosta get away. He doesn't have to pass him. He's just got to keep him within range here for later on in the race. And right now he's doing a good job of that as they head to lap 2.
Right on board with our leader. Also our points leader, remember, Abner Acosta. He wants this win coming off of turn 3. It is a good exit from both of them. They are pulling away from third place Borda, as it is now up to 0.8 of a second between them here on the Moraine sweep. You can see the gap visibly on screen. Turn 5 once again. A little bit more single file this time around on lap 2. Last time there was a lot of action into this corner, but everybody's settling into a long 60-minute race. Look at this battle for third place. Borda and Caron really working at it. That's a little wide coming out of the hurry downs. Borda gathers his Ferrari back together. Still under pressure from the BMW number 27 that sits behind. They come off of the carousel. Andrew looking for the run, maybe to get him something into Canada corner later on.
Andrew Caron coming off of his season best finish at Montreal. He finished 4th there, right where he runs right now. I'm sure he'd love to find his first podium here.
Not able to get close enough into Canada corner this time by. A little bit of a close battle behind them for 7th place. Christian Eisler has both Zach Hefner and Andre Espinoza all trying to look to take away that 7th place. They've also got the other SRT driver, Justin Rame, involved in that.
It's a train coming up the hill.
I think Hef's got a really good run here.
Yeah.
He's got the slipstream of Eisler's Ferrari. He's going to look to the inside, and he's got it halfway up. He's now fully side by side as they hit the braking zone. Eisler doesn't defend. He's just going to let him go through.
Good job there by both those drivers to keep it clean, and also for Eisler to stay in this battle. He could definitely take it back here if he gets a good run, but it looks like Hefner might be pulling away.
Certainly seems like Eisler's thinking long term the way he just let him have that first corner. Meanwhile, it is getting close for the lead because Modoff got within 1/10 of a second. As we ride on board with our current champion, he chases down our points leader, looking to see if he could pressure him into a mistake. Let's stay on this, but I can tell you that Nick Harwood managed to get by Pete Mobrotten for P5.
Modoff, like you said, just trying to apply pressure. If he could stay in Abner Acosta's mirror for the next 54 minutes, just imagine the amount of mistakes that can come out of that number 5 car.
They go. Oof. Gosh, Modoff is pushing the edges of the track here, but he's starting to fall off a little bit. He was 1/10 of a second. It's back up to 4/10 of a second up to the BMW ahead of him. But they continue to pull away from everybody else, setting a torrid pace. 1.4 seconds back to 3rd place Borda, and continuing to gap them.
Wouldn't be surprised if there was a little bit of weight he has to deal with there off the front of off the rear end of that BMW as well in front of him. A little bit of dirty air to manipulate.
He's looking very good as they come up the front stretch. Modoff getting closer. I wonder if he's lifting a little bit. I would have thought he'd been a lot closer than that, unless they've got different setups for straight line speed. Modoff stays in 2nd place for now, but continues to hound Acosta at every corner.
He is right there. Meanwhile, back in 8th, looks like we have some side-by-side. Andres Espinoza just getting around Christian Eisler, it looks like.
And that's another spot lost for Eisler.
Yeah.
Now to 9th. He gets a good run off at turn 3. Is he going to try and come back at him? They've lost a lot of time to Hefner since he got by. He's already gapped them by over a second. It's going to be side by side into turn 5 with Espinoza holding off the inside. He gets the racing line, and Eisler has to finally give it up.
He just about lost that spot to Justin Rame, too, who sits back in 10th at the rear end of this battle. Now Rame got Leif Peterson, Anthony Pisano, Corey Clark, and more behind him. Wow,
yeah,
everyone joining into this.
It seems like Eisler is lacking pace around here, and I'm not sure why. But he certainly is getting a lot of people who are impatient lining up behind him. We ride on board with the one directly behind, Justin Rame in the 912 Porsche. With 52 minutes left to go, still a lot of racing, so he does have time to find some patience if he wants it. But we'll see how long he waits. He gets a fantastic run coming out of the kink down to Canada corner. Is Eisler going to defend this time? A little bit. He sort of stays off the far left of the circuit, kind of just covering him off just slightly. A little bit farther up, Pete Mobrotten is ahead of 2 cars himself. That's Nick Harwood and Zach Hefner. Hefner is on a roll. We mentioned his qualifying did not look all that representative, and judging by the fact that he's looking to crack into the top 5 after qualifying 9th, I think that's bearing fruit. Not going to get a chance to pass the Porsche of Harwood this time into turn 1. Maybe something out of 3, Nick.
Yeah, these three cars all right along with each other. Pete Mobrotten at the front. Looks like he's got a much bigger gap back to Harwood than Harwood has to Hefner. Hefner, we saw how quickly he pulled away from Espinoza and Eisler once he got past that battle. He's definitely got a lot of speed here, like you mentioned. And a little bit of contact there, it looked like, with Harwood trying to get around, or Mobrotten right there on the outside.
Oh, and he tries to turn into the apex just as Hefner appears there. Almost turns him around. They made contact. That's going to give Espinoza the spot ahead of Mobrotten. Let's look at the replay on this.
Nick Harwood got a big run down the Moraine sweep, and he tried to take it all the way down to the left side and just got pinched off a little bit by Pete Mobrotten.
Watch from Harwood's perspective.
He was far enough left to kick some dirt up. He got through cleanly.
See, wow, in the mirror, we actually saw Mobrotten's car get turned up onto two wheels in the mirror there. And so Harwood is now in fifth. Hefner is in sixth from that, and Espinoza takes seventh away from Pete Mobrotten. Also behind them, we missed it, but Justin Rame tried to challenge Eisler through turn one. He actually went off track in that case, and Leif Peterson snuck through. So Leif back up to the top 10. A lot of action here in the first 10 minutes of the race. One thing we've looked away from, even though there hasn't been a change, but it's still close, is Border and Karen in third and fourth position. And in fact, has there been battling for first place? Because they've run down Acosta and Modov.
They have. I don't know if I've been keeping an eye on Acosta and Modov. Not too much battling, but I wonder, we saw Modov lifting earlier. I wonder if he's being held up maybe a little bit by Abner Acosta, and he just hasn't gotten past him as they go side by side behind him.
Yep, Karen's got the inside down into turn 5. Borda maybe looking for the over-under. Looks to get himself a launch off the corner, but it's not quite enough. A smooth move by the number 27 to move himself on the podium. As you mentioned, has not finished in that position yet. A great sign of things to come for this driver here who started the race in fourth position and has gone up one.
Let's see if he can close in any on Karl Modov. As you can already see, he's being able to gap Fernando Borda through the carousel.
Put half a second on him. He's only been ahead for a couple corners. Maybe he was being held up. So they swing it through the kink and head down into Canada corner. The gap right now, for those watching and wondering how it will play out, 1.3 seconds to second place Modov. We'll come in later and see if that has shrunk or if it stayed the same. Let's jump back behind them because Hef still trying to see what he can do on Espinoza. Is also dealing with Pete Mobrotten. Those were the two that got together, Pete and Zach. I have a feeling that if Pete gets up by him, he's not going to be racing too gently around the Ohio driver.
Yeah, this battle, we saw it very close before. We saw all that contact happen as well. And now it's, you can definitely tell these drivers are still very similar in pace, but they just have a little bit bigger gaps in between each other.
They finally found themselves a little bit of racing room. Back behind them, remember I mentioned Justin Rame, who actually has a big off just now. That's not when you want it coming out of turn 3 down the Moraine sweep. Leif Peterson trying to gun it and see if he can run down the number 912. He's closing in, but I think he just might run out of straightaway. Indeed he does, as they get on the binders for turn 5.
In fact, Leif Peterson almost got hit from behind by Anthony Pisano. They were both pretty late on the brakes down there into 5. And that's grouped all 3 of those cars up. Rame, Peterson, and Pisano for 10th place.
We thought it was Eisler who was plugging up that group, but Rame has not been able to quite run down Christian Eisler. He did get by Leif Peterson, though, which we didn't see recently. So he's moved himself back up to 10th. Let's actually see how that one happened. My first time watching this. Looks to be on the Moraine sweep. Must have been the lap earlier, just got himself a really good run down into turn 5. Executed, and then left him in the dust. Come back live. Looking back from Justin Rame. That's Leif Peterson not only falling off, but Anthony Pisano continuing to close, seeing if he could launch out of the final corner good enough. I think he's going to get a little bit of slipstream as they climb the hill.
I think he might get a little bit of a run here on Leif.
Closing.
He's looking to the inside, but I don't think he's going to be there in time. No, he's going to have to wait. But not here.
Certainly not. I have an answer to our question from earlier, though. Let's head up to 3rd place. Andrew Karen, now 0.5 of a second behind Modoff. Remember, just a couple laps ago, that was 1.3. He is absolutely chasing down the top 2.
Yeah, and look at the big difference here is that he's not really necessarily chasing down the top 2. He's really just chasing down Modoff, who's really fallen off Abner Acosta. He was all over the rear wing of Acosta earlier, and now it is Modoff and Karen who are much closer together than Acosta and Modoff for 1st and 2nd.
Well, they say that history doesn't repeat itself, but it sure does rhyme. And I think Carl Modoff is finding this car behaving eerily similar to last season. He just cannot keep up the race pace. It is now up to 0.8 of a second to Abner Acosta, his championship rival. And now he's got a newcomer breathing down his neck, looking to take away more points.
Yeah, definitely doesn't want the driver back in 11th in points, taking away points for a championship run, but Karen wants to win this too. Like I said, best finish of the season was 4th. He hasn't been able to run a full schedule, but it would be something for him to get up into the top 2 or maybe even contend for a win. He's definitely got the pace right now to do so.
Love seeing the new blood come in here and challenge these top runners, continuing to add some spice and variety. And I think Modoff is feeling threatened. Look at how defensive he was up the hill. Once again, weaving down to the inside. Andrew following in his tire tracks with every movement until they come to the braking zone of turn 1. But boy, this is the most nervous I feel like I've seen Carl Modoff in a while.
We saw Modoff really struggle at the beginning of this season. Saw him have a little bit of a resurgence. Started driving like a couple seasons ago when he swept all of the races and won every single event. And now we're seeing a little bit of a mix between the two. He's kind of having to defend, but at least he's at the top of the board again.
But yeah, it's definitely been a much more varied season than the previous 2, considering Modoff has 2 wins. Caraballo, who isn't here today, has 3. Then you've got the driver in front of them, and Abner Acosta, the only other driver with a win. And as they come through the hurry downs, it looks like Modoff maybe has stopped the rot just a little bit. He's got it down to 0.6 of a second, and he's holding Karen off.
Nice little gaps in between these 3 drivers.
There was a problem with Corey Clark. I think he had an off in turn 7. No, it's turn 6, it looks like.
It was.
That's lost him multiple positions. Let's look at the replay of this one. Again, this has team championship implications because Corey Clark is teammates with the 948 of Carl Modoff. There you see him trying to recover. Let's watch it one more time. He just looks like understeer maybe on the exit. There it is.
Understeer on the exit, but then I'm not quite sure what happened. It looks like when he rejoined the track, he must have just lost control a little bit and swung himself out to the left side of the track as well. And either way, it lost himself a ton of momentum in a lot of positions.
Maybe just a bump that he hit trying to return. He's actually still under pressure if we want to come back live because He's got Pablo Uribe on the front stretch. Actually had a look into Canada corner and continuing to try to demote the number 24 yet more positions. Surprisingly low down for Pablo and that number 23 himself. Last round he was fighting within the top 10. Riding on board of the Ferrari, looking ahead at the Porsche. Maybe Corey's got the car a little bit more under control. He's looking steadier than what we saw before, although he has not broken the draft to the Busch machine who we ride on board with. Downhill braking to turn 5. Uribe just not nearly close enough to make a challenge. Does look like Corey is certainly sending it in deep to keep himself from being challenged into those corners, as once again he nearly goes off track.
Spot. Exact same spot on the track.
Does not seem to like that one. That did check up Uribe instead of giving him an opportunity. Josh Daniels now closing up. Josh riding in 20th position. All 3 of these drivers, worth pointing out. Oh, I take that back. Uribe is up 1 position. He started in 20th, he's in 19th, but both Clark and Daniels have since gone down as...
Corey Clark.
Well, yep. That is Corey Clark's night over with a very hard hit to the right-hand side.
Looks like, again, just got on the grass. This time not understeer, though. It just kind of missed the apex. Went a little too low through the kink.
It almost looks like he took too much curb at the
Yeah, exactly. Kind of got hung up on it.
As we look at him live, he's trying to take it back to see if he can get repairs. Up at the front, it looks like Carl Modoff actually has a really good run right now. I am starting to think, though, that Carl is doing some fuel saving here. Is he going to? Nope, he is not. He's going to take a look. He's going to go for the lead, actually. Abner Acosta does not try and hold him back. He lets him through down at turn 5, but he gets a good launch off of that corner. It climbs back uphill into 6. It will give the inside to Acosta, but he can't carry the speed around that outside line, as it looks like Carl, for now, has got the top spot. This has brought in Andrew Caron as well. It is now a 3-way fight for the lead.
Andrew Caron is right there all over the back of Abner Acosta as they go through the carousel. Acosta trying to ignore that. He's trying to focus on Modoff for the lead. Let's see if Modoff's able to pull ahead. They go through the kink. You don't want to go through here side by side. There's a lot of arrow push as well to deal with.
We have 38 minutes left to go, so we are within the pit window. I'd be surprised if we saw Carl go in early. That hasn't really been his MO thus far at this race. He has no traffic ahead of him. Now he's got clear track. Not an or there for Abner Acosta into Canada. So he's going to have to stay behind and look to try to hold on to the tail of that Molecule eSports car ahead.
Look at the weaving here on the front stretch again, all the way down to the right side, the inside of the track there. From Modoff trying to break that draft. And it's working too, because Acosta not able to gain him.
Is Carl playing possum this whole first part? What a strange development we've had.
We saw him backing off the gas a couple times.
Now he's got the lead. Let's see what he can do with it. So far, we've only lost 2 cars this race. Joey Trungale is out, and then Corey Clark, we saw the incident that he had. He's taking repairs. 7th place, really.
Oh my goodness.
Rain, wow. Zach Hefner is the one at the very front that you see in the Ferrari. Then you've got Mo Broughton, Eisler, Rame, Peterson, and Pisano all in a row. This goes from 7th to 12th position as they fan out down into turn 5. Looks like the only change that we've got. Did Rain get by Peterson and all that? So they all stay the same.
Looked like Eisler was going to be able to take a look on Pete Mobrotten, but look at the gap in between them now. It's the biggest one because he missed it. Just don't want to make a mistake, because I'm sure a lot of these drivers have a little bit of tunnel vision just following the guy in front of them.
Yeah, but Mobrotten himself made a mistake down into the hurry down, so he drops off the back of Hefner. With that error, they come through the kink. We've already seen one driver, unfortunately, botch it through there. These ones are looking good. I see Peterson under threat from Pisano at the back of the train. Anthony gets himself a good run, and though he takes a look to the inside, he can't do anything with it.
The battling doesn't stop here, even behind him. We've had quite a bit of battling. For 13th, Jeffrey Arroyan just got overtaken by Michael Stogbauer, who was in this battle, and then he went off track at the very beginning of this race, fell all the way to the back of the field.
So it's been a climb forward for Michael for the second race in a row. Let's take a look at that pass. Down into turn 5. He was into the inside. Was made to work for it, though. Look at that. Stockbauer gets it done in the end. So we come back live. Stockbauer continues to lead Arroyan, but only by 0.2 of a second. They work their way onto the Moraine sweep, trying to gain on that train who you could see in the foreground. Looking at that as they come into turn 5. Yet again, nobody really looking like they're able to change position in that group. All kind of stuck in a stalemate. This looks like it is bubbling up to be something pretty exciting, though. All these cars so close together. Something has got to give. Will take is one mistake from someone through there.
Yeah, exactly. And you also, Joe, you mentioned before the race started all about pit strategy and the different things we've seen. This race, for a lot of drivers, may very well be decided in the pit lane, given how close they are running to each other.
You know, that's a good point. I wonder if anybody's trying to fuel save in this group. It's a very thirsty track. Might be worth something to try to leapfrog them. Get yourself some distance as we watch Hefner just ahead of the car we're on board. Pete Mobrotten lead the way up out of Bill Mitchell Bend into the final corner. Just about halfway through at this point. Who's going to split it up evenly among the group? If anyone. Oh, there's one. Justin Rame. Believe this will be our first scheduled stop of the day. Justin, tired of running behind all those cars, seeing if maybe he could run better on his own and leapfrog them all. Now, as this has been happening, Modov has stretched his gap over Acosta. It is now 0.8 of a second, and Karen has not been able to do anything with it. He is still 0.6 of a second behind number 5 Acosta as well. Make that 0.3. He closed up very well between 5 and 6.
I was just about to say. He definitely is going for it on track.
Watch from the BMW's perspective on the number 5 ahead of him. Swing through the carousel. Certainly seems like Modov sold us a dummy up there at the front, because he's continuing to command this race convincingly. But again, we have half of it yet to go, so things could change as the setups have to continue to run on the same track that is right now at 98 degrees, but we've seen the sun go in and out repeatedly. Coming around for one more lap. Not expecting any of the top drivers to come in. They still have yet to come across traffic, and they have a long ways before they get to any. And weaving through the uphill on the straight to try to break the draft. I think Harwood's trying to do that here on Hefner. Excuse me, on Espinoza, rather.
This is the battle for 5th place. They've stuck together for quite a bit of this. Espinoza was involved in earlier battling. Harwood started up here. He's fallen off just a little bit.
They come. Oh, did Pisano have a problem? Oh, there was a pass between Pisano and Peterson. Or did Peterson successfully defend? I think it was Peterson holding off Pisano.
I think, well...
Gonna try and come at him once again. We're on replay.
Looks like they flip-flopped multiple times, actually.
Absolutely. Let's stay with us because this continues on down into turn 5. That's Pisano in the red, white, and black Ferrari. Peterson tries to fend him off at first, but then comes to the racing line. And then down into the braking of 5. Even though he doesn't quite have the nose ahead, eventually he manages to move himself beyond that gray and blue machine. That gives Pisano a spot in the top 10.
And they're still racing hard as they come out of the carousel now, headed towards the kink. Pisano in 10th. Peterson kicking up a little bit of dirt. And right behind them, Michael Diaz, who started from the pits. And he's fought himself all the way up into this battle.
We haven't been following his progress, but he's halfway through the field at this point and could be getting a few more. Oh, whoa, as he loses the car into braking, somehow catches it. That was a magnificent save from the number 45. I wonder if we could get an onboard replay of that. I thought he was done for.
You can tell he's hustling.
Woo. Those hands snapped incredibly quickly. As we come back live, we've had a few drivers into the pits since then. Harwood has now taken it in. Pisano is in the pits, and Peterson as well. So both those drivers we just saw dueling out on track are now going to duel in the pits. In fact, very, very close to one another here. They're joined by Valenzuela well behind them on the pit lane. Peterson hits his stall first. Harwood next. Excuse me, no, it was Pisano who's hit his stall first. Then Peterson, Pisano out first, and Peterson's got a long stop. A very long stop for Leaf.
Wonder if he's getting any damage repaired. I wonder if he made any contact. With as close as many of these drivers are racing, I'm sure slight contact has been made for most of them.
It was 7 seconds difference. Actually, no, 9 seconds difference, it looks like. That's an unusual amount more. Very curious. We'll have to come back to that later, see if we can suss out exactly what caused him to have such a longer stop. Pulling up the times for our audience in case they want to see the details here of that there on screen. Yeah, roughly 7 seconds. I guess I was right the first time. Difference between Harwood and Peterson in the stop. Up at the front, it has held station. It was about 8 tenths before. It's now down to about between 6 and 7 tenths between Modoff and Acosta. Karen still there in third, continuing to keep the pressure on in case something happens to either driver looking to pick up a position. They've been dropping the 4th place driver, Fernando Borda, who still deserves some credit. Borda, who is looking at a nice top 5 today, is within about 3 seconds. He's just certainly not a concern for these drivers, at least how things stand at the moment.
I'm surprised they haven't let Karl Modoff get away here. He's really not been able to gap him much.
He's closing in on the end of the pit window, too.
Yeah.
26 minutes left on the clock. Our highest pitter is Nick Harwood, who is in 16th. Diaz has the pits marked in his time and his scoring, but that was from his starting from pit lane moment. Let's take a look at 6th place, because Zach Hefner, who has been in the thick of it for the last 3 races now, still has Mo Broughton and Eisler with him. They come out of the carousel. Hefner is the gold and white Ferrari that you see, followed by the blue and white BMW of Pete Mo Broughton, and the orange, white, and black of Christian Eisler is at the tail of that train. Only 3 makes represented out of the 4 this round, as we had no Fords show up. Sadly, it was a little bit of an off coming through Canada corner for Zach Hefner. No harm, no foul.
Well, these drivers still debating on when to make their pit stop as well, and actually maybe an answer for at least one of them. Pete Mo Broughton heads in.
He blinks first to that group. Now, was he close to Harwood? I'm trying to remember who was near him battling earlier on in the race. Harwood is our highest pitter. Mo Broughton looking to take that away.
Harwood with Borda earlier? I think maybe he was with
That might be
4th.
right.
I know he started up in 6th or 5th.
All right,
6th.
Mo Broughton is in his stall. Harwood is on the front stretch now. I think he's going to be able to get by pretty easily, because Mo Broughton still has to go a ways up the lane. And yes, Harwood with the speed up is well past. Instead, it looks like it's going to be Pisano. Mo Broughton just ahead of him by a couple seconds. So will the leaders come in and pit soon, because they are coming around to complete another lap? Karl Modov still holding station. It is that 0.8 of a second from himself back to the number 5 of Acosta. This is going to be the moment of truth coming out of the final corner, Nick.
I'm wondering if maybe... I think if Corone was going to be the first to stop, I think he maybe would have done it already. It looks like Modov, everyone except Karen, who's going to stay out on the track just barely. He almost clipped the grass. But it will be Acosta following Modov in, and Karen with the late decision to stay out on track.
Orta also joins them. You can see in the black Ferrari behind. Espinoza doesn't have any more fuel. Zach Hefner coming in. Christian Eisler is going to be able to make it. He continues on. Not so for Stogbauer, who's into the pits. Aroyan, Tina, Ribe. We're going to have very few cars left. Looks like Josh Daniels is going to have to pit now. So is Kenny Rodriguez. That leaves only 2 cars. It will not take a stop this time by. They managed to save an extra lap. That'll be Karen, who leads, and Eisler, who is in second.
Modov and Acosta coming out of the pits together right as they came in. Modov right in front of them.
Modov gained a little bit of time, though, in that process. Remember, it was about 0.8 of a second. It is now down to 0.3. And in fact, he gets a fantastic run coming off of turn 3. Modov, curiously, he takes to the right side. He's not trying to defend the inside. He lets Abner Acosta get the run and have the desired line as they break for turn 5. Is he looking for the over-under? Maybe trying to get the position back. If he was, it did not work. And Abner Acosta is on by and back into the lead after just a couple corners after the pit stops.
Modov letting Abner Acosta by so easily, that concerns me a little bit. Maybe Modov is worried about his fuel and wants to save a little bit more.
Interesting stat, though.
But it
2 seconds
looks
quicker in
like-
the stall for Acosta.
Yeah, and Acosta is really pulling away. Modov struggling with something right now.
We'd think that Acosta would be the one trying to save fuel based on the pit times, but Karl Modov certainly not looking very strong here in this late race battle with 21 minutes left to go. Modov is falling off fast.
Andrew Karen is
Modov is off.
Oh.
Modov was off course, and that's going to give Borda the position.
I'm telling you, he was acting funny. The way he just immediately fell off the pace. Maybe some hardware issues on his end.
Failing pedals, perhaps?
Maybe.
Because it seemed to be under braking. You can see he gets it back on without hitting anything. It was awful close, though. He dodged a bullet. And Modov is in. Modov is in the pits for a second time.
Yeah, you're right. That seemed to be an issue under braking. I wonder if he borrowed Max Verstappen's brake set.
That is a disaster scenario for the 948. Our current champion, who had closed within 7 points, pulls into his stall. We'll see if he manages to come back out, or is this a terminal issue? If it is terminal, ooh, this is going to hurt. He's already had to drop some very poor scores, while Acosta has finished in the top 5 in every single round. Meanwhile, the battle for 4th place now promoted up a little bit. Espinoza trying to keep Karen at bay. Karen was looking. What happened to Karen in the pit stops? I think we missed a speeding penalty.
Wow.
You look at that, 28 seconds.
Yeah, if it was normally 13, it would have been about 15 extra. Maybe missed
Critical
the limiter
error.
or something.
Oh, meanwhile, on screen, who is this dueling? That is Justin Rame trying to take away, or trying to defend from Michael Stogbauer. This is for 11th spot as they were heading through 8 and through the carousel. Stogbauer's going to get another bite. They run it through the kink. Rame looking a lot more tidy through there than Stogbauer. He still holds on to the rear wing. Is he brave enough to have a dive into Canada corner? No, he's not quite yet. And bad news as we take a look at the battle between Mobraten and Diaz. This is for 8th position. Ooh, and on to the front stretch. Who is that slow in front of them? That was Christian Eisler with a mistake. That allows Hefner through. Is this bad enough that Diaz can get 2 for 1? He's on the inside of Mobraten. They cross the start-finish line, come to the braking for turn 1, but Mobraten is very strong on the brakes. A little too strong indeed, as he overshoots the corner, and Diaz now up to 8th.
Yeah, all of a sudden, this bunches up this 4-car battle.
Bad news for Modov fans. Something is desperately wrong. Oh, netcode by the pit wall. We're getting information in the chat that Karl Modov must have clipped the pit wall on the exit, got some damage, and he has been taking repairs. He is down in 21st position. Oh, he's going to have to hope for some attrition if he wants to gain anything as we take a look at Hefner in this side-by-side battle with Pete Mobraten now. Mobraten falls back into 9th. Hefner in 8th. Diaz now up to 7th, and eyeing Christian Eisler, 2 drivers that have been climbing forward. This has been a fantastic recovery from the number 45. Starting from pit lane, dead last, potentially looking at a top 5, depending on if he can chase down Espinoza, but he's got to get by Eisler before he can think about that. Right on the roof of Michael Diaz. The Bushman car of Christian Eisler just in front of him. They're going to hit the front stretch one more time. Seems to be happy hunting ground for Diaz lately. He's got the slipstream.
Yeah. See if Eisler tries to hold him off here to the right. He definitely does. He takes that defensive line. It's not going to sway Diaz to take a different line, though. He stays to the right, moves back over to the left. He's going to be stuck on the outside. He can't quite clear him. Now he tucks right in behind him. Maybe a little bit of a crossover move. He's definitely got the advantage. He has the preferred line headed downhill. He's going to take it.
Wow, excellent work from Michael Diaz. He is now to 6th place. He's got 7 seconds to make up to Espinoza. And Justin Rame had a big off. In turn 3 just now, that loses him a spot. He was looking to try and challenge Stogbauer, outbraked himself into the corner. We'll see here on the replay.
We saw him go off earlier here, too. Not nearly as dramatic as this.
Yeah, there's Rame in the background, you could see. Gonna watch one more time.
On that first stint, he definitely came across the curbs right in turn 3, just like this. Only this time he clipped the gravel trap as well. That definitely slowed him down a lot more.
As we come back live, he also had to fend off Matthew Tina, who had a run into 6 and 7, but was not able to do anything with it. Tina falls back into the clutches of Leif Peterson. Peterson has not been having a good day. Started in 10th. He's down to 15th. He's been steadily moving backwards. All of them almost safely through the kink. That was Uribe in the Bushfink Ferrari that you saw in the background having a little stray into the grass. Well, this is looking quite lovely for our points leader and race leader. Abner Acosta has not won since round 1, but he's about to notch up his second one, putting him even with Karl Modoff with only 2 rounds left to go after today. I mentioned at the end of last race that Abner made some critical mistakes that threw away a potential podium, and he could have cost him. And I asked the question, is that going to be the race that he looks back on and rues what could have been? Well, let's flip it around. Is this the race that he'll look at and said, this is when I got my championship hunt back on track?
It definitely looks good for him right now as it stands. Looking for just his 2nd win of the season.
Ooh, and Matthew Tina is having a little bit of a battle back in 14th. This is Leif Peterson side by side trying to duke this one out. Peterson doing well to hold it around the outside of turn 6, and as it squeezes down into 7, he's barely given room. Tina fends him off, and now Uribe wants to get in it, but he breaks way too late, almost shoves him off the road. He does give the position back, but Peterson loses time in that exchange. A little bit overambitious for Uribe.
Yeah, it caused him to just slide kind of right through that turn, and unfortunately right through Leif Peterson.
His braking foot, unfortunately, bigger than his brake pads. That could have been a lot worse, but everybody did good to hold their heads together. So this moves Tina to 14th, Peterson to 15th, and Uribe down to P16, where he was before.
Yeah, it doesn't seem to hurt Peterson too badly.
Modoff fans, he's back out on track, but he is running in 21st. He is a lap down from the next car up, which is Munoz. And just as we leave that, Matthew Tina made a mistake out of the final corner and is going to lose 2 positions in 1. That is Peterson, you see, who managed to get ahead. Now Uribe following through, or is he? Tina's going to make him work for it. Ferrari versus Ferrari. The Bushfink car down to the inside into turn 3, but he's got to get the run off the corner. I think Tina is going to try and get that. He does, but he'll need a little bit of help from the slipstream as they come down the moraine sweep.
They're going to be side by side. It's hard to tell who's going to have the advantage. Kind of got to give it to Uribe, but he's going to let him go. Lets Tina go on the outside and keeps that position.
Yeah, that was a great run down to turn 5 from the number 310. That gets him back into 15th and stopping Uribe from being able to take the spot. This has been one of our best battles here at the end. Another good one, though, is Pete Mobrotten, who is in 8th position, ahead of Christian Eisler and also ahead of Anthony Pisano. A three-way battle. Pushing hard here in the final 10 minutes of this race. Not missing anything up front. Ever since Modoff had gotten his damage, that has really squashed the battle up at the front. Especially, you have to admit that Karen could have maybe been challenging Acosta and could have been looking at a win had he not gotten that speeding penalty. Off close to the back of Eisler. Pisano just trying to elicit an error from the Bushfink Ferrari. Eisler a little bit too cool for that. Used to be nicknamed the Iceman. And he's getting to bring that one back out as he tries to chase down Pete Mobrotten just ahead of himself as well.
Pisano has kind of been the guy that all night, all race long, he's been stuck at the tail end of a battle. Not necessarily because he's slow, just in terms of track position, he's been on the short end of the stick tonight. That's where he finds himself in the closing stages of this one, too.
They come down. Eisler thinks about it, but oh, he gets a shove from behind. All three cars make contact and more contact as drivers try to weave through. That was Stogbauer who gets in there. All three are still fighting coming off the corner, but it is Eisler who manages to get in front. Mobrotten slots in behind, and Pisano is at the tail of the train. Rolian also got through in that. This is the replay from onboard Eisler. You could see the rear of the car actually lift off the ground. You got hit so hard.
It looks like the Newton's cradle coming into that turn. Pisano into the back of Eisler, into the back of Mobrotten. And yeah, you mentioned it. Michael Stogbauer coming through there, getting a bit of front end damage as well.
Somebody's been paying attention in physics class.
You betcha.
Well, that mistake allowed the two drivers of Stogbauer and Rolian to move themselves up to 8th and 9th. Though Stogbauer might have some damage from that side-to-side contact he had out of 5. There you see there the onboard, give you a good idea of them coming together. He's holding off Rolian for now, about 0.6 of a second between them. BMW is known for its size and, well, I think speaking of physics, the mass of that car keeping it a little bit safer from damage. And Pisano, in that battle that he's had with Mobrotten for quite a few laps, he finally just overtook him, and that was after a mistake coming out of the final corner. This might be worth the replay.
Mobrotten was struggling with the handling of that car, I was noticing.
Well,
The
this
last
one
couple turns
wasn't
on that.
necessarily handling. If we back
Yeah.
up just a little bit more, a view above might be good for this one. You'll see him just touch the grass. Watch this. It's the smallest of margins in these cars for speed. All that it took. There goes his rival. We wonder about Stogbauer's damage. Rolian closed in to within 0.2 of a second, but he's fallen back. I wonder if it's just simply straight line speed that the 233 is able to utilize. Ooh, a little deep out of turn 8. Stogbauer struggling. This is bad news for Michael. He started this race in 16th. One of our biggest climbers, other than Diaz, started from pit lane. And I think he's lacking that straight line speed. Look at Aroyan catch him. He's given the inside down into Canada corner. It is hard as Stogbauer tries to fight. Jeffrey Aroyan, who himself started in 15th, now moves up into 8th.
Oh, almost gets into the back end of him there.
Learn his lesson from the cars in front of him. Which, by the way, Eisler's regained some of that ground, and he's going to want to be trying to get this one back. Stogbauer's got a good slipstream off of the final corner. Does he threaten into turn 1? Yes, he does. Pokes his nose out, tries to outbrake him into the corner. He's given space at the apex. Didn't necessarily need to be, and he gets it back from Aroyan within a lap.
See if he can hold that down the Moraine sweep. It's another long straightaway. Try to keep that car intact.
Now they're being joined by both Pisano and Eisler. He gets a fantastic run out of turn 3. He's going to have to go the long way around. An immediate defense from Michael Stogbauer down this long straightaway into the downhill braking of 5. Oh, I was going to say it nets him nothing, but it was way too late on the brakes for Aroyan. That opens up the door for Christian Eisler. He steps right through, and Christian moves back up into 9th.
And I'm wondering how quickly Eisler's going to be able to get around Stogbauer. Based off of his pace so far, it looks like I think he's going to be able to get him here in the next lap.
Yeah, lacking straight line speed is not a problem you want to have here at Road America. How quickly is Aroyan going to be able to, Eisler going to be able to catch Stogbauer? This will kind of give us an idea as they come down the kettle bottoms out of the kink. Catching at a high rate of knots. Oh, but behind them, Pisano just overtook Aroyan. Absolutely mugged him into Canada corner. Let's take a look at this one on the replay.
Yeah, just barely squeezed through on the inside.
Got his nose in, didn't allow him to defend, and finished the job through mid-corner, giving Aroyan 11th, Pisano 10th rather. It is on once again down into turn 1. Pisano defends to the inside. Aroyan can't do anything with it. They're being caught by Justin Rame. Rame nearly where he started. He's in 12th. He qualified in 11th.
Rame would love these extra couple spots. He's made a couple of mistakes himself tonight, been involved in a couple of off tracks. A couple of late positions would be great for him. Might even be able to steal a top 10 here.
This is together. Stogbauer is up at the front of this train, being caught by Eisler, who's being chased by Pisano, just ahead of Aroyan. Now Rame getting in the mix, and Pete Mobrotten at the very end of it in 13th.
Very similar to that 6-car battle we saw in the first stint for, I think it was 6th place. A couple different drivers involved. Some of the same. Still a long, big freight train, though.
How much they try to get away from one another, still they are stuck together. Up at the front, Eisler getting closer to Stogbauer. I wonder if he's going to have this one done. He's running out of time. It is 2.5 minutes left to go. So we've got 2 laps left. The rear wing of the BMW. Eisler's going to have his head on a swivel. Because not only is he challenging Stogbauer for that 8th spot, here comes Anthony Pisano, hungry to get back ahead. He's got the best run of the group. The draft allows him to look to the inside down into turn 1. Eisler, though, going to try and hold him back. Eisler a little bit too far into the corner. Pisano gets the spot. Eisler comes back onto the track, tries to fend off Arroyan, but it is fruitless as he slips by. So does Justin Rame. Just like that, 3 positions lost and what might be 4 because Mo Broughton also has a run on him coming down the Moraine sweep. He's able to get to the inside. Eisler thinks about squeezing him, but thinks better of it. They come down to turn 5. Mo Broughton very good on the brakes in that BMW down into the 90-degree left-hander. So 4 positions gone initially. Eisler tries to fight back. Oh, and he fights back well.
Didn't give
Aggressive
Mo
move.
much room on the outside there.
Let's take a look at all that action one more time because that was a lot to take in.
It was, like you said, 3 spots lost quickly. He lost the top 10. Then he was just desperately trying to hang on to the top dozen here. Look at that. Didn't even go all the way down to the curb. He was just giving himself almost like the middle of the track.
By God, he was not going to let that one go. So Christian Eisler, unfortunately, a mistake at a very important time, just as the white flag flies for Abner Acosta, who stretches away from Fernando Borda. It is 8.5 seconds. This one is going to be a nice clean win for the number 5. For those wondering if Diaz, something happened to Stogbauer. Stogbauer has left. Oh, did he DQ due to incidents? I think he did. Michael
Running off
Stogbauer,
track.
yeah, a slight off out of Canada corner and he disappeared.
That'll do it. Clip the grass.
With 1 lap to go. He would have gotten the white flag that time by.
Yeah. It's going to
Back
bump everyone behind him up 1, including these guys for 8th.
Yep, and Anthony Pisano. Actually, I think Stogbauer was behind Pisano, was he not? So I don't think these guys gained a position.
Yeah.
Up ahead of them, just a quick... Oh, excuse me, I am getting corrected. He was ahead of them, so they will bump up 1 spot. Michael Diaz, who was trying to chase down Espinoza for a top 5, he fell short. He ran out of laps. He did cut it down to about 4 seconds between them. Take a look at our leader, Abner Acosta. It looked like momentum was on the side of Karl Modhoff. But Modhoff had to come into the pits early once again as he had no cars to overtake in the end. If he would have stayed out there, I think he might have gotten past Stogbauer, and that would have been 1 more position up. But this man, Abner Acosta, came into this round with a 7-point gap back to Karl Modhoff. He took the pole. That's a bonus point. And now he's going to take max points out on track with the victory here today in Wisconsin.
Behind them for a second, Fernando Borda's going to come across the line, but for the third, a little bit of a drag race. It looks like Nick Harwood's going to be able to fend off Andrew Karen for that final podium position.
Just shy of the podium yet again. Espinoza gets himself a top 5. Diaz recovers from his pit lane start for a well-earned 6. Top of that group that we were watching before, Zach Hefner had stretched away. He gets 7th, but it's Pisano who is going to lead an absolute train. Pisano in 8th, Arroyan 9th, Rame in 10th, Eisler, unfortunately 11th for him. Mo Broughton falls to 12th as they're followed by Peterson at the end of it. Tina comes home with him, Uribe as well. Impressively, very few cars got lapped, and most of that was due to errors. Everybody else still on the lead lap. Last of those will be Kenny Rodriguez in 19th. So that's going to end our coverage of the race itself, but our post-race coverage here will be starting soon. We'll take a quick break where you'll see all the upcoming races, and then after that, you'll find out the unofficial results as well as driver interviews.
40 of the best sim racers. $100,000 on the line. Who will rise to the challenge? This is the most competitive and sought-after season in iRacing World Championship history. This is where legends are made. This is the Porsche eSports Super Cup.
Welcome back to Road America, another twist in our tale of this season, which has been fascinating, and see Abner Acosta lead for the vast majority of it. In fact, I think he may have been leading the entire season so far, but he's only won 2 races. Today was his second, and he beat out Fernando Borda, who finished in second place, but it could have been Carl Modoff. In fact, Carl could have had the win today. But Nick Harwood is going to finish in third, having started 6th. Nick, definitely a bit of a quiet race, though we did get to see some action. Andrew Caron followed him very closely home. Andrew's still looking for that first podium. Andre Espinoza with a top 5, having qualified in 13th. He's got to work on that qualifying. He could have been a little bit more in this race, it seems. He was ahead of Michael Diaz, who, after his penalty, recovered to 6th place. Zach Hefner finishes in 7th, with Anthony Pisano coming home with an 8th position. Jeffrey Aroyan takes 9th, and Justin Rame, a lot of action for him, still nets the top 10.
The Iceman, Christian Eisler, not going to be able to reel himself into a top 10 finishing spot after starting 8th. He's going to wind up 11th. Likewise for Pete Mobrotten, who started up actually on row number 3. Shows 7th, but started up into the 6th place position. He's going to finish 12th. Leif Peterson 13th, 14th for Matthew Tina, and Pablo Uribe going to come home rounding out the top 15. Cristobal Valenzuela going to come home 16th, with Josh Daniels, a quiet race from him as well. Rodrigo Munoz and Kenny Rodriguez rounding out the top 19, and rounding out the lead lap cars. A couple of drivers who struggled. Michael Stogbauer had a good run. He's going to wind up in 20th. Carl Modoff had that weird netcode incident in 21st. Corey Clark, his teammate, actually going to finish right behind him on the board, but 16 laps further back in 22nd. Joey Trungale was a DNF, and Romaniolo a DNS for this race. There's your 24 car field. Joe, I believe you've got some drivers to talk to.
First up is Abner Acosta, our winner here today. Abner, it's your second win of the season. It's been a bit since your first one, though, but both have come at tracks with very long straights. Are you just simply good at these stop-start tracks?
Hello, guys. I don't know what to say about that. I won here last season, so I knew it was going to be okay. And I've always been okay at this track. I don't know if I was good enough to win. I was right there before, right behind Moto. I'm not sure what happened to him, but yeah.
You obviously had a little bit of a challenge from Modov in the first part of the race. Did it seem like he was just kind of waiting behind you, saving fuel or something? Because it didn't look at first like he had the pace for you, and then suddenly he passed and then looked like you couldn't challenge him back. What was going on there?
Yeah, I guess you'll have to answer that. But at the beginning, I did feel that he was just saving behind me the whole time. Um, and at one point, he kind of fell back, and I don't know if he was just. I was all the thoughts were going through my head. Maybe he's trying to bring the pack to me because I know we had like 2 seconds to third place. I don't know. I was just thinking everything at that point, and then it was just like a switch. Right after that, he just caught me, passed me, and then I was just trying to hang on right behind him and trying to force him to make a mistake, or if anything happened, just to make sure I was right there.
The draft racing isn't over. Next round is going to be at Le Mans. Do you consider that one more of a crapshoot with those long straights, or do you think you've got something up your sleeve that could net you a third win?
I have never done Le Mans with any other car that's not the LMP one, so I have no idea that's how that's gonna work with the GTE. But I guess, like you said, if I'm fast in the long straights, I guess that's gonna be good for me.
Well, again, congratulations. This extends your points lead tremendously with Carl having a bad day. Can't wait to see you over in France.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
And before you leave, we'll need your little bit of help because Nick is going to talk to Fernando Borda. And though Nick knows a little bit of Spanish, we'll need a translator, it sounds like.
Yeah, that was a couple years ago in La Clase de Español, but uh, not enough to have a full out conversation. But Fernando, welcome back to the booth. You've had a lot of bad luck this season, and I'm sure it feels good to finish second place after a night like this.
Fernando, básicamente dijeron que tú has tenido mucha mala suerte este campeonato y que si te sientes bien con un segundo lugar.
Gracias. Primero, gracias, Amner, por la traducción. Sí, este fue mi primer podio. La verdad no me esperaba esta posición. Fue muy inesperada para mí. No entendía nada cuando estaba en la posición 2.
Yes, he's very happy with the podium. He did not expect it, and he was just very confused, I guess, for the podium.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. You started third up inside like starting on top of the podium, but then you were not involved in the battle with the top three. You kind of fell off. Running by yourself, do you think that affected your strategy or kind of how you looked at maybe your fuel strategy or anything else into this run?
Borla dice que empezaste tercer lugar y que como que perdiste posiciones y te quedaste fuera del draft. Que si tú crees que eso te afectó en tu estrategia de gasolina y cómo te afectó.
Es cierto, largué en tercera posición, pero no tenía mucho ritmo para seguir a los punteros, entonces traté de concentrarme y no cometer errores y sabía que alguna oportunidad iba a tener esperando algún error o alguna batalla en las posiciones de adelante. Y creo que así fue. No entendí por qué quedé segundo. Entiendo que una bandera negra en box, creo que de Andrew Caron. Y a Carl lo vi por el pasto, calculo que tuvo el incidente.
Yes, he qualified third, but he didn't think he had enough pace to stay with the lead pack. So at that point, he just decided to like not make any mistakes and just just be there. That way, if there were any battles or anything like that, that he would just overcome those people. And I guess he's just not sure what happened. I guess he thought I guess Motive got a black flag, and then the second or third place guy was, I think it was Andrew Karen. I guess he spun, but he's just still confused how he got to second place.
Well, regardless, we're happy to see him finish second, and hopefully he'll be able to run the next 2 races in the season.
Borla, que buena, que fue buena y que hopefully que pueda correr las próximas 2.
Bueno, gracias. Esperemos continuar con esta racha, con este ritmo. Por ahí me cuesta un poquito adaptarme a Ferrari. Mi auto es BMW, pero haré lo posible por estar adelante. Gracias. Gracias, Arnold.
All right, he said thank you guys, and that it's costing him a little bit to get used to the Ferrari. He usually drives a different car, but he hopes to keep the pace that he had today, and the luck that
Oh, well, it's nice to see him out there having so much success in a different car. And we also thank Abner for sticking around. Always awesome when we can use some bilingual skills like that. Joe, you've got one more interview, and I don't know if it's someone we've ever talked to before.
I'm not sure that we have. Nick Harwood finishing on the podium, having started from 6. And Nick, it looked like it could have been a little bit calm from our perspective, but what about from your perspective? It seemed a little tense at the end, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to chat with you guys. Every now and then you surprise yourself, I guess. Yeah, it was, the goal early on was to save some fuel, but, I didn't do well enough with that at the beginning. And Espinoza was on my tail when I was running P5, and he wasn't passing, so I figured he was saving fuel. My tires were running out on me, so I started taking it easy, saving myself, and decided I wouldn't help him out anymore, and I pit a little early. And by the time I passed the pits after everyone else had pit in, I was in P3, and I don't know what happened up the field, but it was a good race for me.
Certainly was. You've had a bit of spotty attendance, it seems, so far this season. What about the remaining 2 rounds with Le Mans? And have to check to see where we're going to finish up. Do you think you'll be able to make it? And it is mostly just real life obligations keeping you away?
Yes, sir. Lots of work travel, unfortunately. I was really hoping to make most of the season, and I'm really hoping to make the next couple races. So, yep, looking forward to the next couple.
Excellent stuff. Hopefully, you'll be able to help your Bushfink teammate on the Hermes team. What's your expectations at Le Mans? Do you see yourself getting another podium, or are you just looking for a top 10?
I'm always happy with the top 10, but I've always struggled a little bit at Le Mans, fortunately. But nothing a little practice can't fix.
All right. Well, we'll look forward to seeing you there, and best of luck in France.
Thank you.
That was last podium finisher Nick Harwood. We have a very multicultural broadcast here on GSRC. Actually, genuinely enjoyed getting to have that interview. We always try to do our best to get everybody an interview. So even if you can't speak English very well, know that we will try and accommodate you as best we can. So don't give up on it, and feel free to show up. But in the meantime, we do have to close up for the day. And of course, we want to thank a few people before we go. Our sponsors, first and foremost. Simulation Motorsports Affinity can be found at SIMMSA.net. If you want to get involved with their program and see how they can help you in the world of sim racing, go check out their website. Also, check out ButtKicker at thebuttkicker.com. All kinds of cool simulation hardware that you can get to help your experience and help your immersion in sim racing. And also, of course, once again, to the SRT team, SpeedWerx Racing Team. They have contributed to make sure that we get these broadcast air for this season. And also, a big thank you goes to iRacing themselves for putting us on IESN. If you talk about a worthy series being on the iRacing eSports network, this season has been phenomenal. Lots of action and lots of drama there. Also, a thank you goes out to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast, listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Sean, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. You can also check us out on social media. We're on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, a week from now, will be at Le Mans. That'll be Tuesday, August 13th at 9 p.m. Eastern. But we also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen. So check those out and mark them down on your calendar. Until next time, race clean, race hard. See you on the track.